we're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's August 1st here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Cheska Dainong.
Happy August, everyone!
Happy August! It's the first day of August! Exactly!
Yes.
And Happy Hoon.
Yes, good to be here.
All right, happy Tuesday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Last weekend, Taylor Swift held her tour concert in Seattle. Her fans jumped around so much they caused seismic activity that's equivalent to 2.3 magnitude earthquake. A seismologist from Western Washington University was the first to examine such vibrations and then called this phenomenon a Swift quake. Moving on, South Korean singer Psy, known for his song Gangnam Style, invited hundreds of soldiers on Saturday to attend his summer concert, Water Show. Psy donated tickets to military units near where the concert was held in Poryong, Chungcheongnam-do province. He said this was to help soldiers relieve their stress after working for weeks helping civilians and their households devastated by the recent torrential rain. And last but not least, in the third week of July, we've seen the number of people who caught COVID-19 increase to over 253,000, and that was a 35% jump from a week earlier. And it's the first time in 6 months we're seeing COVID-19 related tallies quickly tick up, and that's why health authorities believe we may see yet another drastic surge in cases this fall. And to take a closer look at the last headline, experts believe the latest Omicron variant dubbed XBB 1.5 is causing such an uptick, and that's because it cannot be curbed with the current vaccines out there. Also, we've been living mask-free in most areas except for large medical centers, which has contributed to this rapid spread. Ever since the Korean government said COVID-19 is no longer a health emergency, we've seen most restrictions lifted. People having to go get tested after feeling symptoms hasn't been the norm. So Ki-hoon, what did you think after hearing this potential upsurge of COVID-19 figures that we could be expecting this autumn?
You know, I honestly didn't notice the steady rise in the COVID-19 cases, and ever since the announcement of the endemic, I stopped wearing a mask, and I didn't really care about, getting affected again, because I actually got COVID twice. But the second one wasn't as severe as the first one. So I kind of just took it as, it could be just another flu or another virus that we just have to live with. And I think many other people are pretty much thinking the same way. But what matters the most is what's happening at the moment, what we have to deal with, which is, I think, the extreme hot weather we're experiencing right now due to climate change. So, but at the same time, I think for the elderly and people with, infants, they need to be extra careful, I guess. If they feel the symptoms, always wear a mask, because it does help, and we've seen it over the past few years.
And that's exactly what health authorities have been worried about. With blistering heat waves, not a lot of people would like to put on their face masks again, but it's been proven for years now, when we called COVID-19 a pandemic, that wearing masks, getting tested, and treating yourself, also self-isolation, are all key to curb the virus spreading. What do you think about this, Cheska?
I absolutely agree with Ki-hoon. I personally, knock on wood, have not gotten COVID.
Not yet.
Not yet. Or I may be asymptomatic, but I just never experienced it. But the thing is, I saw both of my grandparents suffer through COVID, and they've had side effects for a very long time. So I do believe that it is very important for elderlies, and especially, families with infants, to really take precautions when, headlines as such come up. But myself, I have not experienced, the surge in COVID as seriously as we have when it was, during the time that it was really going on. So I hope it curbs quickly, because this heat is only going to make everything worse.
It's going to make everything worse. So hopefully we don't see a major uptick in cases. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And now that was our news feed for this Tuesday. Let's head straight into our discussion topic. Should senior drivers have to retake their driving test? And this has been a contentious question asked in many countries, and South Korea is no exception. Take a look at the screen to find out more. Year after year, we're seeing more car accidents caused by drivers aged 65 and older in Korea. Samsung Traffic Research Institute found that senior drivers kill 2.9 people per 100 car accidents, while those aged 64 and younger caused 1.7 deaths per 100 accidents. Government data also found drivers aged 65 and up caused 114,795 traffic accidents in 2020. This was a jump by more than 28,000 in just 4 years. In other words, senior drivers are making roads more dangerous. That's why Korean officials have been shortening their license renewal period from every 5 years to every 3 years. They've also asked people aged 65 and older to give up their licenses voluntarily. But with not many doing so, the Korean National Police Agency has been trying to issue conditional licenses for the elderly. More specifically, limiting senior drivers from driving at night. As we're seeing the number of deadly traffic accidents caused by senior drivers go up, we're also seeing officials trying to pass legislation to limit them from driving. But is this the right way to go? Before we answer this main question of the day, let's first talk about the arguments behind whether a person aged 65 and older should be allowed to drive like any other licensed driver.
I mean, recent incidents, as we've heard in the VCR, have really brought this discussion to surface about whether it's safe or advisable for senior drivers to maintain their license and drive on the road. I mean, incidents such as an SUV accelerating and crashing at an apartment complex, a 7-vehicle collision near a department store, have all involved drivers aged 65 and up. And these are all truly heartbreaking news because these are not active crimes such as drunk driving or road rage, but sometimes involve, elderly people just mistaking accelerators for brakes or, just delay in cognitive abilities to react to emergency situations. So there are discussions going on, and as we will discuss throughout the episode, I think it is very important to find a sustainable and safe solution that will affect all of us too when we become senior drivers on the road as well.
Because at the end of the day, for all senior-related issues, I think the new generation should be very attentive because at the end of the day, it's going to be our story too.
Yes, exactly.
And Q, what do you think about this question?
The Road Traffic Authority advises drivers who are over the age of 65 to take traffic safety education programs, but mandates those over 75. So the steps are, first you must apply online and then be screened for any signs of dementia, attend a road traffic education program, and submit a copy of a medical checkup that was taken within 2 years to be able to renew their driver's license.
Right.
So, just like what Cheska said, I mean, these steps are taken to find, a more effective and safe solution for everyone's safety on the road. We're not just targeting, the older drivers, but just everyone on the road.
Right, because now that I've started driving, it's been like 2-3 years, I realize it's not about me just driving safe, it's all about everyone driving safe. It's not something you can do independently. But now I'd like to ask, do you guys think it's actually dangerous for senior citizens to be driving out on the roads? And are there any actual stats to back this statement up?
So starting in 2019, South Korea implemented this voluntary license surrender program where you get about $100 USD when you return your license. And my grandfather actually did it, and I saw him get the little card with the money in it.
Nice.
But even though in this year we have the highest number of surrender rate, it's only about 5% at the moment. So even though they are trying these policies, it's not catching up as much as they would like to. And according to the stats, data spanning about a decade indicates that there's a significant increase in the proportion of accidents that involved people from aged 65 and up. So in the last 10 years up to 2021, there was about 11% increase in the accident from about 13 to 24% in year 2021. So there is an increase in the accidents involving people with certain age group. But again, these are sadly not active crimes, but just cognitive ability failures or mistaken accidents that are caused. So.
Right, and Q, do you think it is really dangerous for senior citizens to be driving?
I mean, stepping away from the stats, I mean, the general public just needs to know that the moment you drive on the road, you are immediately exposing yourself to so many different risks and dangers. Where some accidents may be even unavoidable. So I think it's always a two-way responsibility when it comes to road accidents. And it's just because, like what you said, just because I'm a safe driver, it doesn't mean I won't get into any kind of accidents. And, from the senior driver's perspective, they can always counter-argue that, drivers in their 20s, they also cause a different type of threat and danger on the road from, inexperience, road rage, drunk driving, and even speeding.
Exactly.
So it's not just those senior drivers who are causing the most threat. There are always, the younger drivers as well.
Absolutely.
And I think it's just a social trait that we're experiencing right now, especially here in Korea with the aging population and higher life expectancy. So that's why the government is taking appropriate measures to lower the number of fatal road accidents. So, yeah.
They're taking precautionary measures given that South Korea will be a super age society by the year 2025. Then what do you guys think needs to be done more? Should there be any legislation or regulation to stop or encourage senior citizens to either revoke their license or take the driving test again? What do you think needs to be done?
So I have a question. I know it's hard to imagine, but imagine you're 65 or up now.
Right now.
Right now, yes. Would you be willing to surrender or rescind your license?
Ooh.
Not for 100 USD.
Yeah, that's so true.
10,000, yeah, I might.
10,000 USD, that's more
Submit
like it.
surrender my driver's
For
license.
10,000, I would surrender a license I don't even have.
Exactly. 100 USD is not enough. You know, I can
Exactly.
spend it in a day or week. Yeah, so
Even hours.
hours for yeah.
If you want to be extravagant. But me too, I don't think I would ever rescind my license because I would feel confident. And you know, longer life expectancy, I think 65 is the new 23 these days. So why not? If I'm able to drive and I think I have the cognitive ability, I would never want to give that up.
You know, it's so interesting. I mean, I haven't answered mine, but out of the 3 people, 2 of you already said you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But if we take a look at the screen, I saw a very interesting stat that shows quite the opposite.
Really?
So this is the survey of people under 30s, and they say more than 70% said they would be willing to rescind their license.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they were okay with the 100 USD.
Yes.
It's because they're not 65 yet.
Yeah,
They have
that's
no
so
idea
true.
how it feels to be older. I don't either, but you know, they don't know how
I don't
it
think we're
feels.
the best people to talk about what it feels
It's
like.
sad enough, you know, being old.
Right. But I guess it differs per person.
It does,
Yeah, for
it
sure.
does. And I mean, I think it shows that these are the policies that will affect us when we become seniors as well. And I mean, even now, as Kyun mentioned, I don't feel particularly safe about driving next to some of the insane drivers. So imagine like when we're older and there are no regulations or protections, I would feel extremely unsafe. So, and again, I think it's not simply about matter of, you know, can you drive or can you not drive, but, you know, trying to find a sustainable solution that will actually serve and protect all of us on the road. Yeah.
Because as Kyun mentioned, it's not about age per se. I think your driving ability comes from like who you are as well, don't you
Absolutely.
think?
Definitely.
Yeah, and would you like to add on to the same question?
You know, I read an interesting article where the National Police Agency is proposing a law for all drivers over 65 to stick a sticker written senior driver
Okay.
in their
Kind
back
of like
window.
a sticker when you have a baby.
Like baby
yeah.
on board, you know, oh, I'm a beginner.
Yeah.
Kind
I
of
still
like
have that. Yeah.
And so people, when they see those kind of stickers, they immediately kind of notice, oh, I should be careful around those cars because there's a baby on board or whether they're a beginner driver. And same with the senior driver as well. So these kind of stickers do exist, but they're all different in sizes, fonts, colors, and shapes as well. So across different provinces. So the agency is planning to design just one fixed type of design sticker so that everyone, when they see it, they immediately, you know, realize, I should be careful around these cars and, you know, put in more consideration. But however, on the flip side, because it's not mandatory, you know, people are not too sure whether all senior drivers will be willing to actually put this sticker like in their back window because for them, it will be like, they might be looked down upon and be kind of disrespected just because they're old, you know, they're considered bad drivers. So we're still young. We don't know how it feels to be, you know, at that age, being forced to put that kind of sticker. So we'll have to wait and see.
I think this topic today is really contentious and difficult because there's an aspect of ageist. You know, we do have discriminatory thoughts towards people getting older. We think their cognitive ability goes down, which is scientifically proven. But at the same time, because we're living in such a open and diverse society where we're accepting to the fact that we have longer life expectancy, better technology, we should respect more people out there and we shouldn't be discriminatory just because you're getting old.
Absolutely.
But then there's also the aspect of safety. So there's so many different factors to think about. And Kyun, as much as this is a tricky question, I would like to ask, how are other countries dealing with senior drivers then?
You know, in the US and Japan, senior drivers are asked to return their license voluntarily or even retake a driving test when they want to renew their license and also restrict them to drive at certain times and places. So for example, only drive during, you know, the daytime and avoid nighttime because obviously it's going to be more dangerous. And another policy being implemented is only giving permission to senior drivers who actually own a car that has emergency brake system and sudden unintended acceleration suppression system to be able to drive on the road.
No, that's a really good
Speaking
idea.
of that, I heard some interesting, updates from Japan because they're always very, up to date on
Right.
these elderly support system. There is a car called Support Car S, and basically it's a car with an automated brake system, and it has all these other functions in order to support elderly drivers. And some of the stats even say it reduced the accident by about 40%.
A whopping
Yeah.
40%. So these are very creative ideas. And we're now going to include a senior driver in our talks to hear what she has to say on today's discussion topic. Who better than can we ask a senior driver herself? We'll include her in our talks right after this. Let's now include a senior driver in our talks who has driven both in the States and Korea. It's Sarah Ko. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello.
Hi, good to see you all.
All right, Sarah, I'd like to ask you the first question. Do you feel like it's really harder to drive once you get older?
Well, I've been driving since I was 15. So driving is really a natural part of my life. And although I don't necessarily feel that it's harder, I'm aware that as I get older, reaction times might be slower. So I'm more conscientious, more intentional about driving defensively, not tailgating, making sure there's no distractions, the cell phone's off, those kind of things.
And if it's not too much to ask, may we ask how old you are at the moment?
I will be 69 soon.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
And government has implemented and widened policies on rewarding senior drivers to rescind or surrender license. What is your opinion on these policies that recommend or sort of encourage people to return their driver's license?
Well, perhaps as an American where we have no maximum age for driving, that would be a really hard thing for me to think that I had to turn in my license. And since I'm past 65, 65 sounds pretty young to have
Yes, it does.
to do that. Anyway, although I think, as you all have mentioned, there need to be some safety precautions put in place to make sure that senior drivers can still drive safely if they're going to drive.
Sarah, what should be done to better respect your rights as a senior citizen while protecting the general public on the roads then?
I think one possibility is to, before you have to rescind people's license, would be to encourage self-imposed restrictions, encourage not to drive at night. People get cataracts or they have eye vision problems and their reaction times are slower. So they should be encouraged perhaps not to drive at night or not to drive on crowded highways at rush hour time, to be wise about where you go. One of the other possibilities that we have in the States is, in many of the states, is if you don't want to confront an elderly person, maybe you don't want to tell your mom and dad that they can't drive anymore, you can report them anonymously to the driver's bureau, and they will investigate, perhaps require them to come in and take a driver's test. But you can do that anonymously if you are concerned about someone's driving, so that they are checked up on.
That's a really great idea. And Sarah, I'd like to ask you one last question before we let you go. You said 65 is young. I honestly think 69 is still young because we're seeing such longer life expectancy. And if anyone were to ask you to rescind your driver's license, what would you think? And given that today's discussion topic is quite contentious, I'm quite curious as to where you stand on this.
Asking or requiring are two different things. If you asked me, I would not turn it in. My dad, who's 97, is still driving. And so if I had to do it voluntarily, I would not choose to do that. If you require me to do it, that's a different issue. Then I have no choice. But in Korea, where public transportation is great, I think for seniors, the problem is getting to the public transportation. They still have to walk up or down that steep hill that's no sidewalk and a rough road on a rainy day. And that's more dangerous for the senior than driving. So I think we have to find ways to help them still not be isolated in their homes if they're not allowed to drive.
That is so true. Thank you so much, Sarah. It was a pleasure to hear from you today.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah.
And Sarah provided a lot of insight into our discussion topic, and I would like to ask you guys the final question. Where would you guys like to see senior driver policies go from now, whether that be blueprinting off of what's been happening in the States or Japan, as Kyun mentioned? Where would you like to see senior policies go?
You know, Sarah mentioned, you know, she feels young, even at the age that it is. So, and I truly feel that by the time I reach a certain age, it would be heartbreaking if some of the things that I would love to do are, you know, banned or not recommended just because I'm older, when I still feel young at my heart. So I think this topic is very much relatable to all of us. For me, I think, as Sarah mentioned, I would like to see some discounts on cabs, you know, like services that would actually allow seniors to mobilize much easily. But also, honestly, in my opinion, I wish we had a better bike lane.
Oh, that is such a great
please?
idea.
I mean, it's probably going to solve a lot of the problems, including the heat waves that we're experiencing right now, health issues, and all of these crazy accidents.
If we had more bike lanes, it would not only be healthy for the environment, but healthier for us and longer lives, you know?
And Yeon's definitely gonna, you know, give up her car and start riding a bike to work.
I will try.
You heard it from here first.
I will be on the highway. That's very dangerous out there. But anyway, Keelan, where do you stand? Where would you like to see senior driver policies go?
You know, we're seeing more senior workers. I mean, like workers who work past their retirement age and workers who are required to drive as part of their work. So I think coming up with more detailed conditional driver's license for these kind of people can further protect the rights of senior drivers and, of course, the freedom of them moving forward.
All right, and that's all we have for you today. As much as it was a difficult discussion topic, I think we were able to touch upon many different angles and understand all sides to the story. And we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Cheska Dainhong.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
And Park Ki-hoon.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.